When you first get into motorcycles, nobody really tells you how expensive all the gear can get, or more importantly, what you actually need and what's worth spending your money on. Now I've been there, looking at gear online, and suddenly I've got a $1,000 helmet in my cart, an $800 MotoGP inspired leather jacket, top of the line track boots, multi-material kangaroo goat leather reinforced racing gloves, and I'm sitting there thinking, how did I even get here? And how does anyone afford this? You can easily end up spending more on what you're wearing than you did on the bike itself. Now I'm not saying that gear isn't important or that you should just go out and buy the cheapest stuff you can find, but what I've learned since getting into riding is that you don't have to spend big money to get good protection. A $1,000 helmet isn't automatically 5 times safer than a $200 helmet. And especially if you're new to riding like I am, I think it's easy to get carried away, spend a fortune on gear, and then realize later on that you could have got something cheaper that actually does everything you want it to do. So for this video, I wanted to show you what I actually wear on the bike, how much I paid for it, and why I chose each piece for the way that I ride. And that brings me to another resource I found really useful, and that is MotoCAP. So if you're currently researching what motorcycle gear you should get, MotoCAP is definitely worth checking out. They independently test motorcycle clothing for things like abrasion resistance, impact protection, and seam strength, giving the gear an overall safety rating. But what I really like is that you can compare gear based on how it actually performs, rather than just the brand or the price. So instead of wondering if something is better because it costs more, you can find out what's actually giving you the most protection for your budget. So starting with my helmet, this is my LS2 Stream 2 in white 06, a prime example of why you don't necessarily need to spend big on gear. I picked this one up brand new on sale for just $160. Now this is one piece of gear where I would always recommend buying brand new if you can, as when it comes to something protecting your head, buying secondhand just isn't a risk I'd personally take. You don't know if it's been dropped, crashed in, or damaged in a way that you can't see. So this helmet weighs around 1,550 grams, so it's pretty average in terms of weight. Definitely not one of those super lightweight helmets, but honestly, I don't notice the weight. It also comes with an integrated sun visor, which to be honest, I don't use a whole lot, but it's definitely a nice to have. The visors are also pin lock ready, which I've fitted to this visor to help with fogging. But the biggest thing for me was the safety rating. I didn't want to spend $1,000 on a helmet, and I didn't need to. This helmet meets ECE 2206, which is one of the main things that I was looking for, and most importantly, it fits my head properly. In terms of noise, I'd say it's decent. It's definitely not the quietest helmet out there, but I'd recommend wearing earplugs regardless of what helmet you have anyways. I swapped the stock clear visor for this iridium silver one. I think it looks badass, and the visor mechanism makes it really easy to swap between the two, which is great because I can put the clear visor back in if I want to ride at night. As for accessories, I've added an Amazon Action camera strap mount along with a Bluetooth intercom with speakers so I can listen to music from my phone while I ride. And that's my helmet setup. Super simple, super clean, and it does everything I need without breaking the bank. Next up are gloves. So I'm running the Alpine Stars GP Tech V2 full gauntlet gloves. Now you might be thinking, wait a minute, these are $450 gloves. What do you mean budget? And you're right, these aren't cheap gloves, but I managed to get a pretty good deal on these, picking these up for only $200. So I got a brand new pair without paying full retail. And like I mentioned earlier, gloves were one of my top 3 priorities, so this was one area where I didn't mind spending a bit more. But when I was looking for gloves, there were a few things I really wanted. A palm slider, decent knuckle protection, good abrasion resistance, and this little pinky to ring finger bridge, which basically helps stop your pinky from getting caught or separated if you go down. They're also full gauntlet, so they come up further up the wrist and forearm, which gives me a bit more coverage, and they're actually suitable for track use as well, so if I ever decide to do a track day, I can use these. The only thing I didn't love at first was just how stiff they were. They were super stiff when I first got them, but after wearing them for a while, they've broken in really nicely and they were way more comfortable. They give me the protection I was looking for, and I like knowing that I've got the option to take them to the track if I want to in the future. Now for boots, I'm running the Alpine Stars SMX Plus V1, and these are probably my biggest bargain. So these were around $600 brand new when they were first released, and I managed to pick these up secondhand for only $100 in decent nick. So they're proper motorcycle boots, so you've got protection around the ankle, the shin, the heel, and the toe, and the overall build quality feels really solid. One of the things I really like is the multi-link control ankle support system, which helps keep your ankle stable and prevents it from moving around too much. And honestly, after dropping my bike 3 times, all at low speed, and basically onto my feet, I'm really glad I had these on. They've also got a little bit of ventilation at the front and the back, which helps keep my feet from getting too hot. And there's a dedicated toe box around the shifter area, so you're not constantly beating up the top of the boot when changing gears. They're obviously not the most comfortable things to walk around in off the bike, but once you're on the bike, they're great. And for $100, honestly, probably one of my best gear purchases I've made. So for the jacket, I'm running the Alpine Stars GP Plus R perforated jacket. And this is another one where I managed to save quite a bit of money. So these were around $850 brand new, but I managed to pick this one up secondhand for only $200. And it's a pretty fitted jacket, which I like the look of. And because it's perforated, you get a decent amount of airflow once you're actually moving. I've put in level 2 protection in the shoulders, elbows, and back. So for the type of riding that I'm doing at the moment, I feel pretty well covered. An airbag system is something I would like to add in the future, especially as the technology improves and becomes more accessible, and as I get more experienced and start doing more spirited riding or potentially track days in the future. But for now, a good leather jacket with level 2 armor meets my needs. Now, obviously, when you're buying gear secondhand, you need to be a bit more careful and make sure it hasn't been crashed in or damaged. But if you know what you're looking for and you're willing to be patient, you can definitely find some really good deals. So for pants, I initially looked at traditional leather pants because of their abrasion resistance, but I also needed something that I could actually wear day to day. So I ended up going with the Finmoto 881 Slim Protective Jeans in black. I actually used MotoCAP when researching these because I wanted to look at the actual protection and testing rather than just buying something because I had a big brand name on it. So these are 5-star MotoCAP rated, 340 GSM Kevlar lined, and come with level 2 hip and knee armor. They also claim more than 7 seconds of abrasion resistance, which from my research puts them in the same ballpark and potentially better than some motorcycle leather pants. But honestly, the biggest selling point for me is that they just look like a regular pair of black jeans. So I can ride to work, get off the bike, walk into the office relatively hassle-free. And that's exactly what I wanted. Something protective that actually fits into my everyday life, because if my gear is practical, I'm much more likely to actually wear it every time I ride. So that's pretty much my entire setup. And as you can probably tell, I wasn't trying to buy the most expensive gear I could find. My biggest tip for you guys would be to do your own research, look at the safety standards, use resources like MotoCAP, think about how you're actually going to ride, and don't be afraid to buy secondhand when it makes sense. Because at the end of the day, the best gear isn't necessarily the most expensive, but it's the gear that gives you the protection you need for your ride that you will actually wear.